Hello. Good evening, and welcome to Becoming Cleoria Dunn. First of all, welcome. First of all, we'd like to congratulate our forever First Lady. She was named the most admired woman in the world. Wow, let's give it up for the our forever First Lady, Michelle Obama. Congratulations. Welcome to part 3 of our series. Thank you for those of you that's joining today. Come on in. Welcome to part 3. Today, I'm going to actually take out the book. So if you have a book, go get it because I'm going to be reading some excerpts from the book. Okay? Now, again, I want to welcome you to listen as I share my takeaways today. And after I finish, if you have any questions or if you have some insights that you'd like to share, we would love to hear from you guys. Okay? Now, I was thinking, and I was actually reading another book, and it shedded some light on what I've been talking about with the former First Lady. And so I wanted to tell you guys about the other book that I'm reading, just a little information on that. But before I talk about that, I want to talk about that sometimes the very thing that is holding us back or we're fearful of talking about, sometimes that's the very thing that will take you forward or lead you to your destiny. And I'm saying that because I was thinking about Michelle Obama. I was reading the book and I was reading how she just was kind of held back, when it came to, first of all, she didn't want to be a representative's wife. She wanted no parts of politics. That was another thing. She didn't want any parts of that. So she didn't want to be a representative's wife. She did not want to be a senator's wife. And she certainly did not want to be a president's wife. But I tell you, that was the thing that led her to her destiny. Now, had she not become our first lady, then we wouldn't have any hope of ever being or pursuing some of the dreams, the big dreams that we have. So a lot of times our dreams are way bigger than ourselves. And it's not just about us. It's actually for somebody else. That's what those dreams are for. That's the things that we're moving for. That's what they're for. I was reading this book, and it's a book by Dorothea Brande. It's called Wake Up and Live. And in her book, she talks about, they asked her to come out and do a lecture on why books were failing. And she said that she had already written a book on that. And not only had she written the book on that, but she had thoroughly written on it. So she was saying she didn't want to do the lecture on it, but she wasn't going to turn the people down. And the first thing she got in her spirit, she wanted to do it on something else. And she said what she thought was, okay, if I do it on this, how is it going to be accepted by the people? So immediately she was afraid, but she decided to push past that fear and go on and talk about that. And like I said a few minutes ago, the very thing that you're fearful of, that's probably the very thing that's holding onto your destiny. And it's going to open doors like never before. What she did, she went on, she went on and decided to go with the gut feeling that she had. And the results were overwhelming. And it's an old book, so I can't say that she went viral. But in today's world, she would have gone viral. And that's what I'm saying. So whatever idea that you have, go on and move toward it. That may be the very thing that will go viral for you. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the First Lady. Like I said, if you have your book, I'd like for you to go on and we're going to look at this book today and talk about it. Some things from this book. And of course, she was at this time, she's trying to hold back him. You know, she's fearful of him being the president. And so she says on page 222, she says, since I'd known him, it seemed to me that Barack had always had his eyes on some far off horizon, on his notion of the world as it should be. Just for once, I wanted him to be content with life as it was. I didn't understand how he could look at Sasha and Malia, now 5 and 8, with their pigtail hair and giggly exuberance, and feel any other way. It hurt me sometimes to think that he did. And like I said, this is this fear talking. She's looking at this man and she knows that destiny is on him, but she's afraid of where that destiny is going to take her. On page 223, she said, I did what I could to ignore the whirlwind around Barack, even if it showed no signs of dying down. Cable news pundits were debating his prospects. David Brooks, the conservative columnist at the New York Times, published a surprising sort of just do it plea title. Run, Barack, run. He was recognized nearly everywhere we went. Everybody else could see it on it. And that's true for us today. Some people can see your destiny. They can see it on you, even when you can't see it. She said at one time they were at a restaurant, and when they walked outside of the restaurant, people were joined outside, and when they walked outside, they just started clapping because they could see the presidency on him. She said, what I had hoped was that at some point, Barack himself would put an end to the speculations, declaring himself out of contention and directing the media gaze elsewhere. But he wasn't doing that. She said it got so bad that even her brother Craig, it says even Craig, who'd avidly protected me since the day I was born, had gotten swept into the excitement of the potential of a run. He called me one evening explicitly to make a plug. Listen, Mish, he said, speaking as he often did in basketball terms. I know you're worried about this, but Barack's got a shot. He's got to take it. You see that, right? It was on me. It was all on me. Was I afraid, or was I just tired? She was afraid. And she probably was tired too, because the bulk of raising the children were on her. But like I'm telling you, Dorothea Brande said that the thing that was holding the young writers back was inertia and cowardice. And that may be the two things that's holding you back. That's when you've got to push the most. And let's look, I want to show you where she decided she could no longer hold him back. on page 225, she said, knowing that I really had no choice but to consider it, I finally opened the door and allowed the possibility of the thing inside. Barack and I talked the idea through, not once, but many times, right up to and through our Christmas trip to visit Toot in Hawaii. Some of our conversations were angry and tearful. Some were earnest and positive. It was an extension of a dialogue we'd been having over 17 years. Who are we? What mattered to us? What could we do? In the end, it boiled down to this. I said yes, because I believed that Barack could be a great president. He was self-assured in ways that few people are. He had the intellect and discipline to do the job, the temperament to endure everything that would make it hard, and a rare degree of empathy that would keep him tuned carefully to the country's needs. He was also surrounded by good, smart people who were ready to help. Who was I to stop him? How could I put my own needs, and even those of our girls, in front of the possibility that Barack could be the kind of president who helped make life better for millions of people? So she accepted the challenge. And now, like I say, today, she's in the national news as being the most admired woman in the world. Now just think, if she had made up in her mind, I'm going to stop this. Like I said, the hope that you and I now have, we probably would not have it, because we wouldn't have her to look at. When God starts to push us forward, it's not just for us. When you're free, you're going to free somebody else. They're going to free somebody else. And it's going to continue to grow. And that's what's happening. Women are coming up in places that they've never come before, because we believe we can do it now. We've seen it done. That's all it takes, is one time to see it done. And when you know that it can be done, your faith increases and you move toward whatever it is that you want, that you really desire. So I'm saying to us today, let's not give way to inertia or fear. Let's move forward with our dreams. Now, I want to talk a little bit more. I'm going to come back to the book a little bit later, but I want to talk a little bit more. I want to piggyback back on what I talked about last week, just a little bit. Now, remember, the former First Lady was quoted saying, "My father and brother had the greatest impact on my self-esteem, because I grew up in a household with men who loved me and respected me very early on, who told me how beautiful I was, who treated me as an equal. So even at an early age, because I had a father and a brother, and men who didn't hurt me, who took care of me, the bar for what I expected for myself was raised." Okay? It was raised and it was set by the men in my life. And then she goes on to say, she says, "And too many of us as women are walking around hurt and covered with scars that affects how we care for ourselves and the message we send to our children." These men impacted her self-esteem by loving her, respecting her, told her she was beautiful, took very good care of her, didn't hurt her, So she had a trust, and that helped her to set her bar. And what I want to talk about today is setting your bar. First of all, before I talk about setting your bar, I'm sure you know that if you pull all of this together, you know that the First Lady was raised in a house, in a home full of love. Our homes have to be full of love. Not shouting, not screaming, but they have to be full of love. That's so important for our kids. And you know, our children are the future. They are our future doctors. They are our future lawyers. So we've got to love them, and we've got to prepare them for this world. And it starts in our homes. Now, women, how can we raise the bar? First of all, let's educate ourselves. Am I saying go to a 4-year college like I did? No. I'm saying let's get some books and let's read. Let's do some talking. Let's find out why I'm feeling like I'm feeling. Let's find out what it is I'm battling. Am I battling depression? Am I battling low self-esteem? How am I going to know if I don't sit down and talk to somebody about it or go read up about it? So when I say go educate yourself, let's go reading. Let's try the library. Our local library has all kinds of books. That would be a good place to get started. And of course, your online thing. You can just sit down and put some symptoms in the computer, and they can give you a diagnosis on what may be going on personally in your life. Also, a church is a good place to start. If you're not active in a church, it's good to be in a church. I went to church faithfully, but I kept going back to my ex-husband. I honestly thought that I was in the will of God. I thought that that was God's purpose for me. And so I continued to stand. As a matter of fact, my neighbor, she's passed away, Amy Butcher. I remember her telling me one time, well, with my baby, my third child was a baby, Joshua. And I went next door so she could meet him, and I was holding him in my arms, and I said, I'm standing and believing God to bring my husband home so he can help me raise my children. And that elderly lady turned around and looked at me, and she said, what you say? I said, I'm standing and believing God for my husband. She said, didn't he know you had 3 little children when he left you? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, what you standing and believing God for? And I looked at her and I thought, that was so harsh. And then the next thing I thought, well, she's a Baptist, so she don't know no better. She don't understand about standing on the word of God. But let me tell you something. That was the most sound and wisest thing that anybody could have said to me. I was ignorant. Because the truth was, I did have 3 little children. And he gave me every last one of them. So he knew. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to be very real with you. He was actually in another state with another woman, being a father to her child. Why I'm standing back believing God. I thank God that I grew from there. That's why I can tell you, raise the bar. I grew up, I told you guys that I struggled with low self-esteem. And I saw a lot of things as I grew up, and some of us in my family didn't have the same daddy. So I made up in my mind my children were going to have the same daddy. I wasn't going to sleep around with a lot of men. If I got one, I was just going to stay with that one for the rest of my life. And all of those are some good qualities to have in a woman. They're very good qualities. But guess what? I didn't set any expectations for the man. I didn't say what I wanted him to be. So I got what I got. So that's why I'm saying to you, raise your bar. What I was doing was casting my swines, my pearl before a swine. He was not deserving of the woman that I am. But at the time, I did not know. So I'm saying to you, raise the bar. You accept anything, you're going to get anything. And as I said, as the first lady said, it's not only going to affect you, it's going to affect your children. And you know, as I look back and think about that, my children resented their father. I remember when I got my first degree, he came back. My undergrad degree, he came back. Just like he had never been gone, walked right on back into the house. You know, hey, I'm here. My children weren't having that. They're like, where you been? I've seen my mama struggle. I've seen my mama trying to get this degree, and here you come. It was chaos. It was chaos, and it was not fair to them. They didn't deserve that. If you're suffering with low self-esteem, or you're in a strenuous relationship, you've got to decide what steps you're going to take. If your relationship is good and the two of you are working to make it better, that's great. If counseling is needed, don't hesitate. If your family is hurting because one of you made the same choice as I did, get a family counselor. Everybody needs help. Problems not dealt with get bigger and they turn inward. And I want to pull another thing from the book. This is page 205, paragraph 3. This is, she says, at home, our frustrations begin to rear up often and intensely. Barack and I loved each other deeply, but it was as if at the center of our relationship, there was suddenly a knot we couldn't loosen. I was 38 years old and had seen other marriages come undone in a way that made me feel protective of ours. I'd had close friends go through devastating breakups brought on by small problems left unattended or lapses in communication that led eventually to irreparable rifts. And that's what I'm saying. If you never deal with it, it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get any better. Let me see. A couple of years earlier, my brother Craig had moved temporarily back into the upstairs apartment we'd grown up in, living above our mother after his own marriage had slowly and painfully fallen apart. Okay, and this is the part that we all need to hear, because this is what happens. She says Barack was reluctant at first to try couples counseling. He was accustomed to throwing his mind at complicated problems and reasoning them out on his own because he was very smart. Sitting down in front of a stranger struck him as uncomfortable. And see, that's what counseling is. It's uncomfortable. And so a lot of people don't want to do it, but it's so needed. Couldn't he just run over to Borders, and I think Borders is a bookstore, and buy some relationship books? Weren't there discussions we could have on our own? But this is her talking, I really wanted to talk, and I really wanted to listen, and not to do it late at night or during hours when we could be together with our girls. The few people I knew who tried the couples counseling and were open enough to talk about it, that's another thing. Like I said, some things we want to just close down. We don't want to talk about this. We don't want to talk about we've had counseling. We don't want to talk about we've had a bad marriage. We don't want to talk about we're struggling in our marriages. But if you don't, you're never going to get the help, and you're never going to get it solved. So we got to talk about it. It's important, right? Yeah. Okay. She said the few that had talked about it, it had turned out really good for them. And she said, so I booked an appointment with a downtown psychologist who came recommended by a friend, and Barack and I went to see him a handful of times. Our counselor, Dr. Woodchuck, let's call him, was a soft-spoken white man who'd gone to good universities and always wore khakis. My assumption was that he would hear what Barack and I had to say, then instantly validate my grievances. She was ready. She just knew he was going to be on her side because every last one of them were valid, okay? I'm going to guess that Barack might have felt the same way about his own grievances. This turned out to be a big revelation for me about counseling. No validating went on. So if you're afraid that they're going to point a finger at you and they're going to point a finger at somebody else, don't worry about that. They're not going to point a finger. They're the middleman. They're there to help you get the help that you need. Okay? Now, no validating went on. No sides were taken. When it came to our disagreement, Dr. Woodchurch would never be the deciding vote. Instead, he was empathetic and patient. He was an empathetic and patient listener, coaxing each of us through the maze of our feelings, separating out our weapons from our wounds. He cautioned us when we got too lawyerly and posited careful questions intended to get us to think hard about why we felt the way we felt. Listen at this. Slowly, over hours of talking, the knot, remember she said that there was a knot there? She said the knot began to loosen. That's what counseling does. Each time Barack and I left his office, we felt a bit more connected. That's important. I began to see that there were ways I could be happier and that they didn't necessarily need to come from Barack's quitting politics in order to take some 9 to 6 foundation job. Counseling makes you think. It makes you think the thing out. She was thinking if he just quit politics, we'd have a perfect marriage. That was not it. So I'm saying to you, you may want to think about counseling. If you're struggling with your children, if, like I said, if you've made mistakes like I've made, hire a family counselor and get help for yourself and your children. They need it. And so do you. Now, I decided to reach out to some resources. So I want to tell you of some resources that's available in the city of Monroe. Okay. United Way 211. They have some information on the some resources that's available in the community. Seaside Cognitive Development Center. That's another one. That's a place that you can look for counseling, talk to somebody. Also, Easy Living, Behavior Health, and the Wellsprings. Also, ULM. ULM says that they offer, the first time you come is $25. The next sessions are $20. And then if you can't pay, they still accept you. So those are some places that you can go and look. My time is out. I'm signing out. Well, are there any questions? Okay. Anything anybody wants to say? Thank you for joining. Have a great night.